Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to my video for One Diamond Story. Once again, Shobogan Who has gathered together a bunch of Doctor Who fans to make a video about something in the Doctor Who universe that we love. Back in September 2020, we did one fantastic scene to celebrate the return of Christopher Eccleston as the Ninth Doctor for brand new Ninth Doctor Big Finish audios, where we celebrated a scene from the Ninth Doctor's era that we really liked. And then last November, we did the same thing for the 13th Doctor, Jodie Whittaker, to celebrate the end of her run on television, which ended with The Power of the Doctor in March 2022. This time round, we are going to be discussing some of our favourite stories from the whole show to celebrate the 60th anniversary. So without further ado, my One Diamond Story. But first, I think I need a change of shirt. Ah, now that's more appropriate for the story that we're going to be discussing today. So my episode for One Diamond episode is, of course, the 50th anniversary special, The Day of the Doctor, which is also the second to last story to feature Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor, my personal favourite. It is also the main story featuring John Hurt's guest War Doctor. Oh yeah, and David Tennant's back as the 10th Doctor. Yeah, David Tennant coming back for anniversary specials, that's not a thing, is it? Actually, if we count the 60th as a trilogy, he's been in 5 anniversary specials. But only one of them is the 10th Doctor. Anyway, so Day of the Doctor. Now, for me, this was the greatest experience of watching a Doctor Who story on broadcast. The Power of the Doctor had a very similar experience last year, and I would say that was my second greatest time watching a Doctor Who story. And it's quite possible I'll feel something similar watching the 60th anniversary specials, or at least one or two of them, if not all three. But currently, my favourite times watching as a Doctor Who fan are The Day of the Doctor and The Power of the Doctor, due to the high level of, well, I suppose fan service is a major factor in that, but it's also a way of how the story distributed that fan service and also tying it in with the story and how it worked, and it was just so great to watch at the time. Day of the Doctor probably also because it was such a major event. It was the 50th anniversary, whilst Power was more for the BBC centenary. That was more for BBC in general, whilst the 50th was celebrating Doctor Who and 50 years, half a century as its own thing. A bit like how the upcoming 60th is doing the same thing, but for an extra 10 years on top of that, and 3/5 of a century. When we get 2/3 through year 66, we'll be able to say we're 2/3 through the century. That's going to be like early to mid 2030, I think. Ooh, just in time for the 25th anniversary of the new series, I guess. Or just after. Anyway, enough rambling. So, Day of the Doctor. Now, admittedly, it probably doesn't have the greatest plot of all time, but I feel like the plot works really well for this particular story, as it is seeing the Doctor, both the 11th and 10th Doctors, come to terms with their past self, the War Doctor, who also goes on a character journey to accept himself as a Doctor by the end before regenerating into the 9th Doctor. So it sees those characters interacting really well and going on their respective journeys, and the ultimate end point and change at the end of the story, which I'll get back to in a bit, because that was a major factor in loving this story, was the climax. The Zygons being here are also because of them being David Tennant's favourite monsters. So as a treat for him, Moffat threw them in, and they were also some of the most popular monsters that hadn't come back yet. And also they did something pretty interesting with them, both in this story and then in their return in Series 9, one of the strongest stories of that series, FYI. It also delved the most into the Time War than any other episode of the TV series, with the End of Time coming a close second, I guess, as we hadn't really seen much of the Time War prior to the End of Time Part 1, only what we've been described and what we heard about it, and then this one throws us into the thick of it. Granted, it is a bit more like a typical sci-fi film, but like with the Daleks' 1,000-Year War, it is towards the end point of the war. So whilst the audio dramas may play around with lots of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff and interesting new ideas and stuff, by the time we get to the last day, like with the Carlers and Files using bows and arrows and biplanes in their wars. The Time Lords and the Daleks just resorted to just shooting each other. So I don't really mind that. The moment also being sentient also allows for the aforementioned character growth to work really well, specifically with the War Doctor. And this also allows Moffat to use Rose Tyler in a way without having to, as he said, he didn't want the baggage of the 10th Doctor's relationship with her. So instead, he just used the character as the physical form of the moment to help guide the War Doctor. This is a very interesting and great concept, and is able to have Billie Piper in the episode without being specifically Rose Tyler, just a Rose Tyler or Bad Wolf form for the moment. And it works really well with the War Doctor story, and she's like a in the shadows, kind of a background sort of ghost character to him, a sort of a ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. How many times has Doctor Who gotten a rift on A Christmas Carol? Even Clara gets some good stuff, tying in with what she did in the Series 7 finale, where she was scattered and splintered across time. That was that mystery of Series 7 Part B. How on earth are all of these Claras turning up all of a sudden? Whilst I'm not a huge Clara person myself, I can see why her impact on the character was quite significant in these trilogy of stories. As in this one, she's able to discuss with the War Doctor and try to understand what he's like and why the others don't like him. And then when 10 and 11 are prepared to join the War Doctor after he goes back, she's able to change their minds about it because of who they really are. And that's what sets in turn the change of continuity to the Doctor having destroyed Gallifrey in the Time War at the very end of the Time War, to just thinking that they have, but actually they saved it. And that brings us on to the climax, which I absolutely adore, where all of the Doctors, although in archive footage for all of them besides the main three and one surprise cameo. Although the First Doctor did get some new voice lines courtesy of John Gillier, who did the extra First Doctor voices for the reconstructed original episodes 3 and 4 of Planet of Giants, which are included on the DVD and Blu-ray. But it was so awesome at the time, just seeing all of these Doctors, even if it was archive footage of the previous episodes for Doctors 1 to 8 and 9. I say 1 to 8 and 9 because War Doctor in the middle, and it's just so epic, them all coming together. It was so exciting, so good. Add on top of Peter Capaldi's quick cameo as the 12th Doctor 1 episode prior to making his debut at the end of Time of the Doctor, and we've got an absolute masterful, historic landmark scene of a scene. This was such an awesome climax. If I was just doing one scene from this episode, like the previous two video series that I've included a video from, the one fantastic scene and one brilliant scene, if I was just doing one scene from this episode or one scene from the 11th Doctor's era or the War Doctor's era, it would be this scene. This one would be just my number one scene of the episode. It's just so good, with number 2 easily being the following scene with the curator. Well, the scene after the next scene, because the scene following the Saving Gallifrey one is the Doctors talking and the regeneration of the War Doctor and basically the aftermath. But then we get the curator scene. That was also absolutely amazing. Seeing Tom Baker again alone was amazing, but the fact that his performance as the creator was so good. That was just so lovely. And then the final scene of the episode itself was also so good. The end of this story is just filled with so many great scenes and great moments, and it's just absolutely amazing. The rest of the story is also still really good as well. Some really good fun, some entertaining moments, and so forth. There's a couple of the typical Moffat jokes in there that don't always work, but those don't deteriorate the enjoyment of this story, as opposed to something like Time of the Doctor, where they do get in the way. Stupid scenes about being naked for church. Anybody? But overall, this story is just an absolute brilliant story. Stephen Moffat did a brilliant job in creating a fantastic 50th anniversary special, and will go down as a diamond amongst Doctor Who stories. I referenced all 3 of these video series' titles in one moment. But in all seriousness, and to throw in one more pun, this is definitely a gold standard episode of the show. Yeah, I know my puns are a bit lame. But yeah, Day of the Doctor, I love this one. This is a fantastic 50th anniversary special. So good. I am surprised it did win the 2014 Doctor Who episode poll. Like, I did not expect it to be number 1. And I was even less expecting it to be the best of the 11th Doctor ones when they did the 2023 one. It probably won't be number one overall for the 2023 poll, but I'm still surprised it topped the Matt Smith 11th Doctor ranking, so what would I know? If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts and opinions on this story, check out my video on the Whouniversals that I did in 2020 for Matt Smith month, which at the time also contributed to my then ongoing Doctor Who marathon and reviews that I was doing at the time, so do check that out. And as for the episodes from One Fantastic Scene, Dalek, and One Brilliant Scene, Village of the Angels, I do recommend checking out my reviews on those, Dalek on my retro channel and Village of the Angels on this channel. So thank you for watching my One Diamond episode video on the Day of the Doctor. I hope to see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne YouTube channel.